In today's video, we're going to be talking about when should you get engaged. But first, I have a story. Once upon a time, there was a man and a woman, and they'd been dating for 30 years. Yes, not 13, not 3, no, 30. 30. It was 30 years into dating, and the man woke up in his own home, in his own bed, without anyone else in it, and he asked himself, not only one morning, but every morning, he asked himself this. He said, is it now time to get engaged? And he asked himself, he's looking at the mirror, he's looking at his pot belly, he's itching his little hairs. And here's the thing, here's the little catch. He felt like if it were time for him to be engaged, he felt like he would know if it were time. But he also didn't know how he would know if it were time. So in his confusion, he just decided to wait it out and see if he would know the next day. And he did this day in, day out, day after day after day after day. And here's my question to you. Do you want that to be you? Do you want to not know what to look for when you're considering getting engaged to someone? I doubt it. So in today's video, in today's action-packed video, and by action-packed, I mean there's so much that I've prepared for this video. I'm going to rattle through it like you need to hear all of the facts and data as fast as possible. We're going to be talking about engagement, what engagement looks like, why you want to get engaged, all of these fun stuff in today's episode of Love Stories with Grady. Hola, I'm a 22-year-old man here to chat about your relational game plan. And my question to you is getting engaged part of your game plan? If it is, you are on the right video. We're gonna be talking about reasons to break off an engagement, reasons to get engaged, how do you know that you wanna marry the person that you're engaged to, all of this fun stuff. Many of these quotes, many of these bullets, many of these things that I'm gonna be focusing on are from this book, Facts of Life and Love for Teenagers, written by Evelyn Millis Duvall. However, if you are like me, you know that most teenagers are not getting engaged. So this love advice tip book was getting them ready for when they were engaged. So this video is pertinent to anyone who plans on getting engaged or is currently engaged. And if you're already married, send this to someone you know who's been dating for a long time and is considering getting engaged or is engaged. All right, so what are the reasons for breaking off an engagement? As you're engaged, you might find out that this other person isn't as compatible with you as you thought they were, and that you view things a lot more differently than you once thought you did. If these aspects aren't going away, and if these are things that you can't necessarily work through, then that might be a problem. For example, let's say you have a very different view on how you want to raise your children. Well, that might be an issue. Another reason to potentially break off the engagement, if you're fighting all of the time, that might be a red flag. Another reason to break off the engagement, if you're experiencing complete boredom with this other person. Now, there's a difference between boredom and being at peace with someone. Not every relationship at all should be a constant high, a constant up. You know, I had someone tell me recently, it's not truly a roller coaster if it only goes up. There's always downs as well. And so there is a lot of times where you might be bored together, you might need to go out and do something. Boredom isn't necessarily a sign that this other person isn't right for you. But if you're bored of them as a person and that never changes and you just feel dull sitting with them and you are uninterested in this person whatsoever at all, that might be an issue. In this case, if the other person is dull and uninteresting, what may have happened is you may have outgrown them and you may have outgrown the relationship and they may have stayed complacent where they're at. And this is what the book says, a broken engagement is much better than a forever life of mutual boredom. Like, that would suck. So how do you break an engagement? It's very similar to breaking up in dating, which was discussed in the last video, but an additional element is you need to give back that ring as well. And we'll talk about the ring in a second. And listen, people might try to get you back together. They might try to reunite you. If you do break off things, make sure that you actually do want to break off things. Don't be so wishy-washy. If you break off things, you should be sure about it. And if you marry the person, you should be sure about it. If you're not sure about either one of these things, don't rush into a breakup and don't rush into a marriage. And if you're definitely not sure if you want to marry that person, I'd say more lean towards breaking up with that person than marrying that person. And if you're not sure, dive into the why behind you're not sure. Dig into that, because that will tell you a lot. That will tell you if your reasons of uncertainty are good reasons or bad reasons. And then work on fixing those things, and maybe not fixing it in the relationship, but processing it, working through it, thinking on it. All of those things are important. All right, next topic. The ring, all right? The ring, bam, boom, bing, the bling. The ring is the bling and the bling is the ring. And this is what the book talks about. A ring is a symbol. It is not a gauge of love. If the diamond on the ring is this big, it does not mean that they love you anymore than if the diamond is this big right here, which, I mean, I don't know this might still be a pretty big size diamond. My point is, even if there's no diamond on the ring, it is not necessarily a gauge of their love. Ladies, do you want your men to get a mortgage for their ring and then have that mortgage hurt you both in the future for years to come? Ladies, I'm not saying a man shouldn't treat you well by giving you a ring, but I once saw a joke where this girl didn't really want to marry the guy, and then he shows her the ring, and then she's like, oh my gosh, yes, 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 I'd love to marry you. And the question is, does she really want to marry the guy for him or for the ring, for the status of having this really cool thing to post on Instagram? Hee 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 hee. And here's a few other things to keep in mind. How many people are at your wedding, or how many people are interested in your wedding on social media or in the public? That does not gauge the love that is at your wedding between man and wife, the groom and the bride. It does not indicate if you'll be a successful couple. So don't publicly play your whole relationship to the world as if it's some performance for other people's approval and acceptance. Don't try to use this event to be popular and to become celebrities in your community, whether your community is people face to face or community on social media. When it comes to weddings and when it comes to who you want to marry, the important thing is not how pretty the bride will be, but how fine of a wife she will be. The important thing is not how rich a groom will be, but how much of himself he will be able to offer and he will offer as a husband. Prettiness and richness are not the right indicators when deciding if you want to marry someone. There are new feelings when it comes to engagement. There's an additional deep sense of belonging that comes with engagement that doesn't necessarily happen at such a high level when you're going steady or when you're dating someone. Getting engaged is a serious step. Sometimes emotions are so high and so exciting that what the book talks about is young people don't really process how big of a step it is and what it really means for your future. And you need to really realize what engagement means before you even get engaged. Make sure you're sure about the other person. So during this next step, I'm gonna be talking about some things to evaluate with this other person that you might want to consider. What about the other person makes you hesitant? What things have been bugging you about this other person but you haven't been addressing with them? Address those things, bring it out in the open, figure it out. I beg you. If a person can't handle some good communication, then that's something to be hesitant about as well. I have a friend who told me to always bring those things that sit within inside you that kind of set you off or bug you the wrong way. Always bring it out in the open, communicate them, bring them up. If you bring up this slight gut check with them and it's enough to push them away, don't worry about it, because think about it. If that was enough to push them away, how good of a relationship, how good of a foundation was your relationship built on to begin with? And sometimes you can't bring up the thing that is slightly being a gut check inside you. Let's say, for example, that the person you're with is kind of BSing their way to get a ring. Let's say they're performing a certain way in order to get your ring. Well, you might not necessarily want to say, hey, I feel like you're performing to get my ring. Instead, you need to evaluate them and consider, why are they acting this way and what's their reasoning? Ask yourself, is this the one for you? So how do you find that out? Research, even back in 1957, even had some ways in order to figure out, is this person actually a good fit for you? They had some ways to actually evaluate that. If you don't have these things in your relationship, it doesn't necessarily mean it can't work out, but you might want to consider if your relationship has these things or not. Is this person going your way? That's the first question to ask. Ask this question early. Does he or she look forward to the same exact life? Maybe not exact, but the same life that you do. Are you both headed on roads that are going the same way? Is there a similarity of hopes and dreams and aspirations for the future? Are your ambitions in line and connected in any way? Are you reasonably sure that you both are working towards the same life goals? If you're going to be a good team, you need to be headed in the right direction, in the same direction. The right direction is the same direction when you are a couple. That doesn't mean both need to be writers or both need to be architects or whatever. But let's say one person wants to be an architect and one person wants to be a writer. Well, do your lines and ambitions and goals really align for that? If the writer is traveling but the architect wants to stay in one city and the writer is all over the globe for, like, let's say a year, that might be a problem. Another question to ask is this your kind of person? Does he or she like the same things that you do? Do you come from similar backgrounds? Are your families similar? Do you have a similar faith? What are your expectations for the standard of living? What kind of standard of living do you both want? Do you agree on the most important issues in your life? Make sure you're in line on the things that actually matter, the true things that matter. Do you want to always be battling over the things that are most important in life? I don't think so. Another thing that the research back in 1957 said to look at was, do both sets of parents approve? Does your family think engagement is a good idea? Are they happy for you? Does his or her family like you? Do you like her family? Do you like his family? Even though the parents approving isn't necessarily always required, the book says it's a huge asset. And parents and peers can sometimes see things in a relationship that you don't, So if they don't approve, they might have a good reason for not approving. And remember, when you marry someone, you are marrying into their family. So you might want to know, do they approve of you and do you like their family? All right, the next thing the research said to look at is, do you respect and admire as well as love one another? Feelings of affection, love, is not all that matters. And remember, love is selfless. We've already established that. So obviously selflessness truly does matter. When this book says love, it's mostly talking about feelings of affection. When you begin a lifetime together, it's really important that you both respect and admire each other completely. In marriage, remember, you're going to be sharing everything together. You're going to be sharing everything that's important together. You're going to be sharing your belongings. You're going to be sharing your money, your thoughts, your time, your dreams, your most precious, intimate moments, your most incredibly held values. Only when you trust each other will you feel completely safe and secure. When you're considering if you want to marry someone, don't believe the lie that once you marry them, the things that currently concern you will simply go away, will simply vanish. Don't believe the lie that you'll simply be able to change the qualities that you don't like about them. That rarely ever happens. So make sure your relationship is based off of mutual trust, mutual respect, mutual admiration, and yes, mutual love. Another question the research says to ask is, are you two great companions, good companions? Many of us want companionship in marriage. We want a friend, we want a best friend. We want a best friend who is open to completely seeing us as ourselves. We want someone that we don't have to act around or we don't have to play a certain part around. We want to be understood by this person. And here's my question to you, does this person even attempt to understand you? Do they even desire to dig into who you are? Do they even desire to dig into what you believe? Do they even desire to dig into what makes you you? Ask yourself that, because if a companion isn't caring about who you've been, who you are, and who you're going to be, then are they really a companion, a good companion, a great companion? No, they're acting more like an acquaintance. And you might be there for them, but are they there for you? Are you able to share things with them without embarrassment or without restraint? Here's a few tests to see if you're a good companion. Are you compatible in the things that you say with the things that they say? Do you find enjoyment being together? Do you have a sense of belongingness when you're with this other person? Another tip to understanding and better understanding this person, the book points this out, is take personality tests and then dig into what those personality tests say about you and this other person. They might tell you something very key that marriage would eventually show you. Like, for example, if one person is very positive and the other person is very pessimistic, that might be an issue. When you're looking at engagement, you have to ask yourself, are you really ready? Figure this out. This is the time to figure this out. Do you really want to be engaged, and why do you want to be engaged? Ask yourself those questions. Here's one sign that you're ready. If you're mature enough to handle the responsibilities and opportunities of marriage and family and life, then that might be a good sign. If you're young, give yourself time to mature before going into marriage. And remember, this book was written for teenagers, so. And listen, do you think marriage will automatically make you happy? Because it won't. You need to learn how to be joyful before you get married. If you're happy as a person prior to marriage, you'll much more likely be the person to be happy within marriage. Now let's ask, what's even the point of engagement? Why don't you just go from dating to proposal to then boom, let's get married? What's the point of the dating engagement period? It gives you even more dedicated time and freedom to learn more about each other. It's another time to mutually explore each other's minds, and this doesn't happen automatically. You need to be intentional. You need to ask questions. You can't just flip on the TV. You can't just flip on a movie. You can't just cuddle on up and act as if you know everything you need to know about this other person to know if you want to marry them. If someone truly isn't getting to know you, if someone is truly fine just knowing the bare minimum of who you are, is that really what you want in a relationship? If they're fine just flipping on the TV, if they're fine just turning on a movie, if they're fine just hearing the bare minimum about your day and not hearing and knowing anything else about what makes you you, what kind of a relationship are you building as a foundation for your life together? Figure out what you both want to get out of married life and how you both expect married life to be. That's important. You don't want to be into marriage and then suddenly be like, whoa, this isn't what I signed up for. Whoa, this person is way different than I thought they were. Press into the things that will tell you about who they are now. Now is the time for that. When you're in the engagement period, ask yourself these questions. Where will we live? How much will it cost to get married? I'm just gonna read these. How much will it cost to live as a married couple? As a family when children come? How will both individuals working affect the marriage? How many children will there be? How will you raise them? What will your faith look like within your marriage? How will your social life look like within your marriage? How will you best operate with in-law relationships, whether those are great relationships or bad ones? Asking these things might seem unromantic, but it's necessary. You have the rest of your life for romance. Too many movies paint the dating period and the engagement period as the point of your life, where you're romancing that other person, and they paint marriage as the dull, boring aspect of life. But the true romance should be within marriage. Dating and engagement can be romantic, but it should also be analytical. And within marriage, you don't need to be analytical anymore of, should I be with this person? You have fully committed to this person, so you can say, full throttle, I'm to romance you because I truly do love you and I truly do cherish you. And sure, some of the novelty might be gone that we had in dating and engagement, but we can still create the specialness of being committed to each other, because that is a whole new novelty within itself. And novelty is almost a state of mind, but I'm going on a rabbit trail about marriage. This is about engagement. These conversations can actually be fun. Have fun with these conversations. Bounce ideas off each other, sharpen each other's minds, and practice being unified. For years, I'm sure you've always thought about yourself and just yourself as a single unit, but now you have someone else that you're always considering, that you always need to bring in the picture, not only what you want, but what they want and what you both want together as a couple. Learn to think and feel as a couple together. All right, we're gonna wrap this video up with asking, how long should the engagement process be? Is it too short? Engagement process really smart? Is a really long engagement process helpful, or is it just painful? Honestly, a lot of this comes down to the personal preference of the couple. If you're dragging the marriage date on and on and on, and you're pushing it back and back and back as you're currently engaged to this person, you're likely dealing with a lack of decisiveness. And if you're dealing with a lack of decisiveness, you really need to dig into that and ask yourself why. What do you really want? Marry as soon as you're ready. Why wait if you're ready, but why rush it if you're not ready? The engagement period should be long enough to know if this is a person that you really want to fully be with for the rest of your life, as well as to plan the commitment ceremony, the wedding, the marriage, making sure everything is prepared for that event. If you've already done many of the things that we already discussed in this video while dating, you're probably in a much better shape for engagement. The book says, two mature persons who know how to work and plan cooperatively, to understand other people, to love and to be loved at a stage high up on the ladder of love development, will not need as long of a period of engagement to be ready for marriage as an immature couple who would need to grow up both as individuals and as a pair. In today's video, we talked about so many different aspects of engagement. We talked about when to break it off, how long it should be, what to look for when you're examining, is this someone you really want to marry? But all of these things are vital, important, and key. If any of these things stood out to you, or if you have anything to add about engagement, be sure to comment it below. I think people can glean from your knowledge just like they can glean from mine. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up if you really liked it, and also subscribe to this channel, because if you don't subscribe, then do you know what's going to happen? You're not going to remember to come back for the next episode, which is about how to handle conflict in every stage of your relationship: dating, engaged, and marriage, wedding, all of that fun stuff. We're going to be talking about that very soon. Until then, have a very fantastic night, and I hope you continue being a very awesome person. Adios.